I had a friend, a guy who I used to work with, at a real estate company. And he was like, hey man, can I ask you a question? You won't get offended? No. Is it true in your religion, part of your religion is like taking your life, like blowing yourself up? So I was like, if that were the case, we wouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? We'd be all over the place. Islam's the fastest growing religion in the world, and it is the most misunderstood.
Terrorism is not from Islam. These types of acts are not, from this religion.
And that's when I really started getting an idea, what is Islam, how deep it was, and it wasn't what the media was portraying.
When you embrace Islam, it's like this weight that you have has been lifted.
Oh, you can breathe for the first time?
Yeah, you just feel like...
Why are Latinos converting, in your opinion?
The statistics suggest that the Latino segment of the overall Muslim population is the fastest growing.
They're leaving cultural Catholicism. They don't really understand what they're leaving.
Thank you, my dear.
How large is this movement?
It's got to be at least 250,000.
Wow.
But it's growing.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best.
With all the racism and the xenophobia happening, where are the Catholic Christian leaders in this country really taking a strong stand on that? A lot of Latinos are saying, maybe Islam is offering something that Christianity doesn't offer.
I'm worried. Absolutely, I'm worried. Islamic culture is extremely different.
Inside America's Islamic community, one of the fastest growing populations is Latino. And the epicenter of that movement is here in Houston, Texas, home to not only one of the largest Latino communities, but also one of America's largest Muslim communities. Just 350 miles away from the Mexican-American border during one of the worst deportation crises in recent history, and less than a year from the Muslim ban.
We gotta go and we gotta knock the shit out of these people.
I've come here to meet Jaime. Jaime?
Yeah.
I'm Lee. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, man.
The founder of America's first Islam and Spanish Center to find out why two of America's most discriminated groups are actually coming together.
Whenever people come in, we let them know that, look, it's not a traditional mosque. We're the only producers in the world producing material in the Spanish language and distributing it, at the mass level.
People who come through the center, do they come here thinking in the ways that the media has portrayed Muslims?
Most definitely.
Or believing the things that the media has portrayed about Muslims?
Most definite. In fact, that's the default. When people come in here, before coming in here, we know they have preconceived notions. If I didn't know Chinese people, and on the media it says Chinese people kill people who are not Chinese, I wouldn't want a Chinese neighbor.
Right.
It's just common sense. That's the reason why we built this place.
Yeah.
Getting rid of some of these misconceptions. Then they start thinking, why don't I know this stuff?
Jaime, what brought you to Islam?
I grew up in Houston, and when I came here, I was 8 years old. All I knew was Colombia and Venezuela. I previously lived there. So I'm one of those immigrant youth that came to America. My parents wanted for me to have a better future. When I got here, I realized that the culture here was a bit different than what my parents expected. And we were having a lot of issues in regards to gangs popping up in the environment. And there was some troubled times where, unfortunately, I saw some of my friends get killed, people getting strung out on drugs, and it was a survival mode. I looked for answers, and I looked at so many different religions. And someone who gave me the Quran, I began to read it, and the more I read it, the more life made sense. My mother thought I was brainwashed when I became Muslim because I stopped drinking alcohol, going out, the girls, all the stuff that I had easily, I let go of it. And it was great that I did it at the time I did it, because a few months later, a lot of my friends got caught in some stuff that put them in trouble. And I'm like, man, That choice of me accepting Islam saved me from that.
America is not the most kind place to Latino immigrants right now. So why would you subject yourself to being that double minority?
I don't think being a Muslim and being Latino is putting me in a position of weakness. It actually puts me in a position of strength. I have to be the best Latino I can be now. You gotta be the best Muslim.
While Latinos are the fastest growing population within Islam, very little research has gone into discovering why. So I'm heading to Rice University to meet with Professor Considine, a religious studies expert, to gain clarity on why so many Latinos are becoming Muslim during such a critical and divisive time in America. Why is it that Latinos are seeking out Islam? Does it have anything to do with the common experience between Muslims and Latinos in this country?
Absolutely. Especially after the election in 2016, where a lot of these people felt purged.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're sending people that have lots of problems, and they're bringing those problems with us. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists.
A lot of Latinos are recognizing that not being white in this country comes with certain barriers. Latinos might also be thinking, Muslims generally speaking, they face similar obstacles with all the racism and the xenophobia happening from the top of the government.
This is a 5-year ban.
To an everyday existence on the street.
Who knows what they're gonna bring into this country? We're gonna bombs, ISIS, what? They need to go.
I think a lot of people are seeing Islam and the Islamic tradition in general as being more tolerant of race. People have to recognize, one of the most racially diverse religions in the world is Islam.
We stand in opposition to their opposition. Allah.
How large is this movement?
The statistics suggest that it's got to be at least 250,000 Latin Muslims in this country.
Wow.
But it's growing. This is the future of America. Houston is a microcosm of the future of America. It's the Browning of America. They say by 2050, white people are not going to be the majority anymore.
34% of the American Catholic population is Latino, mainly immigrants, and many of those converting to Islam are coming out of this community. So I sat down with a group of members from St. Cyril's Catholic Church in Houston to get their thoughts on the Latino Christian move to embrace Islam. What has been your experience with the number of converts moving from Catholicism to Islam within the Latino community?
So it's a very complicated issue, actually, right? It's multifaceted. But there's also a concerted effort by the Muslim community to reach out to the Latino communities. I think it's no secret, especially in the climate that we have now, and this has been an issue for years with immigration, especially when you look at the disenfranchisement of peoples, right? And that's what we're seeing in the immigration standpoint. And they turn to something. And of course, I think the Islamic community, something that I think that they target and they look for.
Thank you, my dear.
Look at the rise of Islam within Arab or parts of the Middle East. Where do you see its greatest growth? Is the same place you see its greatest extremism.
But you do feel as though they may placate to this demographic or have a...
I do. I think it's a concerted effort. I do. But I'm worried.
Really?
I'm worried. Absolutely, I'm worried. I'm worried from an anthropological standpoint. Islamic culture is extremely different. We see what's happening in Europe. We see what's happening in England.
How do you think they'll be received by the larger American community?
Skepticism, I would say. Very skeptical, very skeptical.
Anyone who says that we target disenfranchised individuals, they don't know us. People who talk like this, they have an elitist mentality, possibly. How are we targeting? We're not targeting disenfranchised people. We're on digital media.
So what room is this?
So this is the brain, man, of the whole operation right here. We reached 14 million people just in a month in Ramadan.
Wow.
Sometimes there's some attacks, and they come due to some bias sometimes, and people have some agendas. This is our podcast station right here.
I mean, had you had to contend with Islamophobia or racism because you were Latino?
When I became Muslim, it was 3 months before September 11th. I was one of the few Spanish speakers in the community. And so the Muslim community asked me to speak in front of the media, Univision, Telemundo, to explain about why Islam was not what people were thinking just happened over there, you know, with the Twin Towers.
Y la gente se confunde y dice o piensan que las acciones de algunas personas representan a los musulmanes.
You know, that some Colombians sold drugs doesn't make me a drug dealer because I'm from Colombia. That some Muslim goes and commits a wrong act of violence shouldn't make me feel bad about being Muslim. Friends and family, they were so emotionally charged regarding what happened over there in New York that they were like, how could you, right, be part of that?
Is that the case for most Latinos converting?
The family is the first shock, yeah.
We're in the north side of Houston, about 45 minutes from the Islam and Spanish Center, and we're gonna go meet up with Raul. Raul is a DACA dreamer from Mexico that converted to Islam in 2011 at the age of 19, and has since become an active member of the Islam and Spanish Center. But like many Latino converts, Raul's family disowned him for becoming a Muslim.
I was exiting high school. I was not doing so good spiritually. You know, I was going through depression. Also, like, I'm under DACA as well. At the time, I didn't have papers. So, you know, I'm getting paid, you know, like $5 to wash the dishes an hour and stuff like that. A lot of people take advantage of immigrants. And that's when I really started getting an idea of, well, what is Islam and how deep it was and how it wasn't what the media was portraying. And it was what literally cured my depression.
Are you concerned at all being a DACA dreamer and now being Muslim?
Oh man, it's like a double whammy for me.
Yeah.
With Trump, it was just like one, I'm Latino, and two, I'm Muslim. It's just like I'm gonna get attacked from all sides. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Allahu Akbar.
¿Te ocupa, Nico?
No, está bien. Ya es que ya están todos afuera. Basically, my mom found out that I was studying Islam, and she pretty much kicked me out of the house and threw all my clothes out. She said I was joining a terrorist organization, a cult, and they were training me to kill people. At the time, like, also I stopped eating pork, so my mom was just like, when I fed you beans, I would put pork on there on purpose. It was like straight up rejection. I remember eventually my mom started coming into the community, seeing the rest of the people. They were like, all these people would come up to my mom like, hey, you know, your son's like going out there feeding the homeless, being a good member of the community and stuff like that, all these things. And my mom just comes up to me and she's like, how come you didn't tell me you did all these things? And I was like, we never asked. You weren't interested, so I didn't tell you. I believe them seeing how much change Islam had in me, it's like when they started seeing it's like, okay, this isn't necessarily bad. You know, he's still Raul, and if anything, he's becoming a better person. My mom accepted Islam just a few months ago at El Centro Islamic.
Ashhadu an la ilaha.
Were you there when she did?
Well, yeah, most definitely. She decided to do it on her own, and it was very, very mind-blowing.
Perdón por mi reacción, pero le hice tan difícil a mi hijo la religión que yo decía que no iba a ser de esta religión. Y aquí estoy.
The next day, my mom told me that she hasn't felt that much peace in years. Islam, it changes everything.
We've heard from a number of converts that we've spoken to that there was an immediate rejection within their family to their conversion. And I'm curious if you can comment on that, why members of the Latino community are so resistant to their own neighbors, sons, daughters, wives, and husbands converting to Islam.
In one word, ignorance. It's lack of education. It's misinformation, right? So this is part of the hangover from 9/11.
Allahu Akbar.
A lot of people in this country who are not Muslim have certain ideas which are steeped in stereotypes. So they see Islam as oppressing women. They see Islam as being backward.
Allahu Akbar.
They see Islam in association with ISIS and Al-Qaeda and violence. All things which can be factually disproven if we just look at the reality.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters.
Today is the Muslim holiday of Eid, and for a number of the members of the Islam and Spanish Center, this is going to be their first major Islamic holiday. So we're going to go inside and meet some of the members of this community and find out what this transition has been like. Did you guys have any misconceptions about Islam or about Muslims before you became Muslim?
Terrorists.
Yes.
Yeah, terrorists. My family makes jokes. My brothers mostly. They're like, oh, you're going to the masjid. Oh, they're teaching you to make bombs or something.
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Terrorism is not from Islam. These types of acts are not, from this religion.
From what I knew before when I became a Muslim to now, yeah, it's totally different.
How has Islam impacted your cultural identity?
I'm still Puerto Rican, from when I wake up till I go to sleep.
Something
Mine
similar
was actually-
happened.
We still have our culture, we still have our language and everything.
I'm still Mexican. I still like the same food. I still eat all of y'all food. And I just, my faith has changed.
One of the things that I think that we're going to see at some point is probably a backlash into the fact that in the Islamic communities, when you grow up with that, you grow up with Sharia law.
When you say Sharia law, you mean like separation of genders, things like
separation of genders, some of the things, they even brought that out. Well, why would women go to such what they seem as a more oppressive? One of the interesting things is that reading some of these young women is they love wearing the hijab. What does it represent? It represents modesty and a sense of purity. It is what I feel like is they feel like when they go to Islam, they're hitting the reset button. Really, and this is something that Islam does do, and it's sort of a demonizing of white culture.
So do you think that conversion is a misguided decision?
I do. I think it's a lack of understanding what they're leading.
Is there something that Islam has to offer the Latino community that maybe Catholicism or Judaism or just like another religion doesn't?
The core principle that is so enticing of Islam is that you have a very personal relationship with God without any intermediaries. There is nothing between you and God. Traditional ways of teaching religion has been because I said so, right? Because my father did so. But when you look at Islam, you're encouraged to ask questions in order to leave doubt. Brothers and sisters, many of us came to the United States from immigrant parents. How many youth came to America and lost their way? How many lost lives because of the choices that were made? How can someone look, living as a Muslim, as a minority in America right now, and look at what's being said in the mainstream, look at what they're saying, look at the way they're talking about us, look at what they think. How many of us put ourselves in that situation? Is that of a victimized mentality? Or how many of us look at these circumstances and say, you know what, these are just challenges in life. I'm gonna head forward and I'm gonna deal with this in the best of ways.
America at its foundation is a land of religious freedom, and it's a country that was built by immigrants. But in today's political climate, Muslims seeking religious acceptance are being discriminated against, just like the immigrants seeking a new home.
Allahu Akbar.
Ironically, this intolerance and oppression has brought these groups together, and from that shared trauma, a supportive and accepting community is growing.